Well, David Moyes, nice to meet you. Well, we'll just start with your connection with Westbourne Islands.
Yeah, there's a lot said about it, but it's a small connection. I've actually got a bigger connection with Iceland. I used to come to Iceland when we were boys for year after year, 4, 5, 6 years in a row we came. My dad ran football teams, brought football teams here, and then we took all the teams back to Scotland. So many people from Iceland have had times in Glasgow, and I'm bumping into so many people who've been involved and come and saw my family for many years. So I did go to the Western Islands, done some coaching when I was about 16 years old, but it seems to get written a lot about or talked about. But I've always had quite a big connection with Iceland, and as I said, my dad has especially.
That's really interesting. So you were coaching in Iceland, well, in Westmoreland when you were 16 years old?
When I was 16 I came over, and it was in my summer holiday, and I came over and said if I could do a bit of coaching. But at that time there was groups of Icelandic teams, like all the clubs, FO, Fylkir, KR, Hafnarfjörður, were all bringing teams to Glasgow.
Yeah.
And they used to play against the teams in Scotland, and I was always helping my dad out with the teams. And then we would come out to Iceland as well. We used to love coming to Iceland because obviously there was no darkness, and we were able to play football all night, and we were young boys who were, we just thought it was terrific. And the women at that time are beautiful, and were beautiful then, and we loved running about here in Iceland. So it was a great time for us. So I've got really fond memories, myself and all my friends back in Glasgow.
Was that your first experience in coaching?
It was probably one of my first. I think it was to spend a bit of time. There was a chance to go out and do some work with some young kids.
Yeah.
So it was one of the first times. But it was young. But I didn't come out here with it. I didn't do that thinking, I'm going to go on and be a manager in years and years to come. It was to fill a bit of a summer really, and I've got to say I enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed Westman Island because at that time it wasn't long after the volcano. There was still a lot of the lava about. You could still smell it, and it was actually a good time, and I know I enjoyed it.
That sounds great. Well, you're here now in Iceland, and did you follow, since with your connection with Iceland and everything, did you follow their qualifying in Europe?
Yeah, but I followed Icelandic players a lot because I've had a couple in my time, and I've come across them, and my dad, because of his interest in the country and working with football, I've been with young footballers, so I've always sort of watched what was going on and watched them. But I think this year especially has been really interesting with how well the national, not just this year the national team, but they've done so well in the qualifying and missed out just before it. So I think it's been great, but I think there's been a real development in Iceland, facilities, everything that's been going on. I hadn't been in Reykjavik for about 8 years there. I was back a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing all the new soccer domes and all the facilities, which means that obviously, playing football in Iceland now isn't just through the summer for 2 or 3 months. It's now, which it should be, an all year round thing. And I'm sure it will be great, and the national team will be a great inspiration to future generations of young boys and girls here. Yeah.
Do you think that maybe like teams like England and English football, can they take something from that, like in terms of football education and
Yeah, well, I say this with respect. I would still think that Iceland would be behind in all these things, even though they've qualified for the Euros. I'm from Scotland, so I'm Scottish, so we look at it, but I think in a way it's an incredible achievement with the size of the population that Iceland have gone there. But it doesn't mean to say that it has to be a one-off thing. In England, for example, they've got incredible facilities. All the clubs have got facilities. They've never tended to do particularly well at the tournaments, albeit I do think that they've got a more chance in this tournament than they've had for a while, because they have got a new group of young players which are exciting. Ross Barkley, John Stones, Dele Alli, Harry Kane. They have a much more sort of a group of players which people like the look of. So I do think that England have been doing a lot of things to improve. As is Scotland, most countries are doing lots of things, but Iceland have done it as well, and have found themselves a group of players which has got them to one of the major tournaments.
Yeah. Well, you spoke of having worked with Icelandic players. You worked with one very recently, and at Real Sociedad, Alfred Finnbogason.
Yeah.
It didn't quite work out. Can you tell me, can you give me a specific of why it didn't work out? Or?
I don't think there was any specific. A bit like myself, I was only there for a year. Alfred did come, scored an awful lot of goals in Holland, and there can sometimes be styles, there can sometimes be countries which doesn't always suit the individual. I don't think it quite suited Alfred, because he's gone on to show that he can score goals anywhere. He's doing it in Germany, he said he's done it in Holland. Alfred was a great lad to work with, he was a great professional. I really enjoyed it. I found him a really clever boy. I think he learned to speak Spanish in something like 3 months. It was incredible. And I'm hearing that he can speak all the languages. And I've got to say, he was very good company as well. I really enjoyed working with him.
Yeah. Well, lastly, maybe what did you make of the conference? Did you enjoy it, and what did you learn from it?
I enjoyed. I mean, I was interested. I've got to say, I sense in the auditorium, everybody is so excited about the national team, and there's a business and sport conference, but I got a feeling everything led back to football, and I'm glad, because that's what I'm in. And I do think that there's a real big anticipation, and I think now you're just beginning to feel the real build up to getting to the Euros, and I sensed it in the room. And tonight I've got another session on football tonight, which I think will be a bit more specific to all the football things. So I'm looking forward to it. It was great to come in here, and I bumped into so many people who I'd talked about I'd met before, but I don't recognise now, because we're either losing our hair or getting older. So it was great to see so many old friends, and I always enjoy coming to Reykjavik.
Yeah. Well, how far do you think Iceland got? You talked about in the conference. Remember, you were brutally honest.
Yeah, I was brutally honest, and I'm still. And sometimes, people don't want it. It's easy to be. And all I'm doing is saying is, don't put too much expectations on your manager or on your players. Yeah. They've done a great achievement. They've beaten some of the best teams, and hey, they may well go on and do it again. I'm not saying they won't do it, but I'm just saying is, what you don't want to feel is disappointment if they didn't get through, because I think that Iceland should use it as a building block to try and make qualification in tournaments more regular, more often, and more importantly, inspire the young ones to come through. And the boys who are in your under-21 teams now have got to be the boys who are heading for the national team, and the boys who are in your under-18s team need to be the boys who are heading for the under-21 teams, and there has to be a progression and a development so that you get a continuation and not just a one-off.
True. Well, thank you so much, Mr. David Moyes.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.